Well, I was learning a song on the xylophone, but it got too hard. So I just gave up.
You shouldn't give up, Chris, even if it's hard.
Persisting seems to be one of the greatest attributes of successful people. Then kids need to know how to persist because we want them to be successful as well.
If you were to tell a student in first or second grade, just persist, keep persisting, we assume that that student is going to understand what that looks like. We make a broad assumption. So the animated characters can actually allow kids to model a behavior, to understand the language that's used with a concept such as persisting.
Persisting? What does that mean?
Persisting means finding ways to keep going, to reach your goal.
It's a skill that kids are going to use and need for the rest of their lives. To be able to persist, to be able to stick with it, to do it when the going gets tough.
Managing my impulsivity? How do I do that?
Think before you act. Think a little bit about what you have before you draw a conclusion. And so I called that managing impulsivity. In a classroom, you have 20 or 30 students all at the same time. Kids have to learn how to take turns. They have to learn how to not interrupt people. They have to learn how to respect other people's ideas. And all that means then that they have to manage their own impulses. They have to think about their own feelings, and they have to take charge of themselves.
So now we say to the kids, okay, remember, you want to manage your impulsivity, and the kids respond. And they actually have a kinesthetic way of doing it. Stop, think,
act.
That's it.
Let's go talk to him and see what's wrong. We should listen to him with understanding and empathy. What's empathy?
I watched teachers, for example, a second grade classroom, and she was trying to help them understand what does it look like and sound like to listen with understanding and empathy. So what we learned from watching the animation, these kids started to realize when I'm in a group and somebody says something, I'm going to try to be empathic to their point of view.
We have to be able to change our perspective and look at things from other people's points of view. We have to be able to walk in their shoes for a period of time.
It's really hard to build empathy in a student, in a child. They can only see their point of view. But for some reason, when they're watching a cartoon, they can see the cartoon's point of view. And then all of a sudden, they're looking at things through another person's eyes.
Next time I see a friend looking so gloomy, I'll try to understand and empathize with why they're feeling that way. You guys are good friends. Try a tamale. I don't want a tamale.
Dee, you should learn to think more flexibly.
I just had my mind set on spaghetti. That's what makes me happy.
Well, thinking flexibly means being open to new ideas and trying new things, like this tamale.
Thinking flexibly battles against being set in your ways.
You know how hard it is for us to actually hear another point of view and then to be able to actually understand that well enough to know what that means to you? Well, thinking flexibly is all about that.
We find that this is very basic to being human. The reason why humans survive is because they're able to adapt. So it's that ability to change your perspective is very important.
Come on, Dee. Try a bite.
I guess I could try just a tiny bite.
think about my thinking.
It sounds funny, but it actually works. When you think about your thinking, you focus on what you're doing and how you can do it better, rather than just doing it without thinking.
Yeah, it helps to have a strategy in your mind so you can reach your goal.
Thinking about your thinking, which many people call metacognition, meta, about, cognition, your thinking, is really one of the most important of all of the habits because it really says that you'll be aware of your thinking. It really puts you in what we refer to as your executive control.
Being able to carry on an interior conversation inside your head. The ability to form a vision inside your mind and work towards it. All of those are metacognitive skills that need to be talked about in school. It's all part of that self-regulation, being in control of not only your own actions, but your own mind as well.
You did great, Marcus.
Thinking about your thinking made playing t-ball easier, didn't it?
It really did. I slowed down, planned a strategy, and focused. And when I focused, I could see right where I needed to hit the ball. And it worked. Did you check your answers after you finished?
No.
You should always double check your work to make sure it's correct. Miss Flowers calls that striving for accuracy.
Striving for accuracy? What's that?
It means you're trying hard and taking the time to do something the right way.
Sometimes people think that striving for accuracy is all about getting an A. But notice that all of the habits are actually ing words. They're not about the final piece. They're about the process of getting there. So when we say striving, ing, it's not that you got there and did the very best product that you possibly could. It's that you have the habit of checking to make sure that what you're doing is in fact working.
It's not always being accurate, but rather, what do you do to be accurate? It's that attitude that you have towards your work rather than just being satisfied with mediocre. I don't think we ever have anything that is absolutely perfect, but we know ways of making it more perfect, and that's the striving part.
You should always read directions carefully and double check your work. That way, you don't have to go back and do it again or fix it later.
You're right. I'm going to make sure I strive for accuracy with everything I do.
But how about if we look at the globe? Oh. Does anyone know where the globe is? That's strange. It was here yesterday.
One missing globe and a whole lot of suspects. Not many kids would take on a case this difficult. But I knew that the only way to solve a mystery is to start asking questions.
It's really fun to watch the animation where we see Chris acting as a detective, because often students really get that understanding of what it is to be a questioning person, to be problem posing, to try to understand what's going on. We're not looking for a solution, we're looking for the question that will help us to investigate a possible solution.
That's what we want teachers to do with students, is to give them time to ask questions. So we have kids just generate a lot of questions. We help kids then to become aware of the kinds of questions that they're asking, when are they appropriate, what kind of data do they yield for us, and we get them into the habit of asking more questions.
I've been asking about the missing globe, Miss Flowers, but nobody wants to confess.
Maybe, instead of asking people if they took the globe, ask why might someone want to take the globe? It leaves room for more ideas. You see?
Yeah, I do. Wow, you'd be a great detective, Miss Flowers.
This is different. There are way more coins here than we had on our homework.
You can still figure it out using what we learn. That's called applying past knowledge.
Applying past knowledge? What does that mean?
What's really important about applying past knowledge to new situations is that we realize that we actually know something, that we can take something that we knew from our own experience, that we already learned, and see how it might apply to a new situation.
We want students then to be reflective and say, well, what have I learned from this, and how can I apply it to future situations? So part of learning means that we accumulate those ideas and those questions, and we apply them elsewhere. Your learning is really not complete until you've had a chance to reflect on it.
And we can apply past knowledge every day to help us learn new things and solve new problems.
Can you describe it the way Miss Flowers taught us?
What do you mean?
Do you remember how she told us to communicate using clarity and precision?
Oh, I remember. That means I should be careful about the words I choose so that other people can understand what I'm describing.
We're always trying to get our students to use very specific language. We're saying that the more that you think with clarity and precision, the more likely you're going to be able to think better about situations. We don't want you to just be using generalizations. We want you, as young children, to begin to realize how important it is to be specific.
We want to urge children to use clear and precise language, and that if we detect vague language, we help them become more specific.
I get it! It's way more clear now.
I pictured the story in my head and really focused on it so I could tell you all the details.
And I saw them perfectly.
I can use my senses to know what season it is. In the summer, I can see the sun shining, and I can feel it on my skin.
Yeah, and in the spring, I can smell the flowers and hear the birds singing.
All information gets into our heads through our sensory pathways. And people who are very curious want to maximize the number of pathways to get into their heads. So when we communicate, we want to communicate sensorially. And when we intake information, we want to take in information through all of our senses. In the classroom then, I think it's very important that teachers realize that they have 20 to 30 kids out there. Each one has a different preference for learning. For some, they need to see it or manipulate it. For other people, they need to hear it, and some need all the above.
Gathering information in as many ways as possible gives us a much better understanding of the world around us, as you can see.
And smell.
And hear.
And taste.
And feel.
Hammy is getting big. I wish we could buy him a nicer home.
Maybe we could build him a new one.
Ooh, you think we could? But what could we use to build it?
There's tons of stuff around the classroom. What do you think, Miss Flowers?
That's a creative idea, Marcus. I'm sure you kids can find plenty of materials if you use your imaginations.
We know that young children are open to creating, imagining, and innovating. The problem is that sometimes we want to squelch that. We want to say, no, not now. Put the paints away, put the drawing away. I hear teachers say all the time, use your words, use your words. We don't hear them say, use your drawing. Make your drawing make sense. How do you actually begin to think about this in a new way? How can you create something? However, right now, what is really exciting is that people are developing makerspaces. I watched one school in South Fayette, Pennsylvania, and I watched in a kindergarten classroom how the teacher had all of these tools and blocks and things that the kids could produce with, and she just let them loose. And she said, what would it look like if you were able to build a happy place? Imagine that, and then see what you build and work with each other and create a happy place out of this makerspace. When you think about this teacher and what she's saying, create a happy place is different from saying, we need to have a place where we have lights, where we have buildings, where we have roads. No, she wasn't telling them what to do there. She was allowing them to imagine a space in which happiness would be pervasive. Well, what would that look like to you? Create, imagine, innovate.
I don't understand why it's such a big deal. It's a flower. We see those every day.
It's not just about the flower. It's about looking at things that might seem ordinary and finding what's special about them. Yeah, my mom says that's called responding with wonderment and awe.
All thinking begins with wondering. If we want thinking to take place, we've got to have wonderment. It's inherent within every one of us. I have a little great-grandson, and he is fascinated with trucks. But you ought to see him. He takes them apart, puts them back together, dismantles them, and reassembles them, and plays around us. It's all this wonderment. The problem is that long about 5th grade, kids lose that. And so the task for teachers is to keep that wonderment alive throughout a lifetime.
Now I understand why you're so excited to watch the flower bloom. Come to think of it, I've never seen a flower bloom before. Now I'm excited too.
I was so embarrassed. But then she started laughing, and so I started laughing, and I didn't feel embarrassed anymore. She told me that if you laugh at your mistakes, sometimes you don't feel so bad about them anymore. Yeah, it's called finding humor.
Humor is so important. It gives the brain an opportunity to breathe, to feel different, to kind of get you to go. And so finding humor is really a wonderful release. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to laugh at ourselves. So we want to make sure that we're finding humor, but we also want to make sure we're giving students an opportunity to understand what appropriate humor is about.
One of the greatest indicators of intelligence is a person's ability to find humor. It's a very intellectually challenging and complex skill.
At first I felt embarrassed, but then I realized how funny I must have looked.
It's great that you can find humor in life, Chris.
It was a great game. I played better than I ever had before.
You played well, Marcus, but you didn't really let anybody else play. You weren't thinking very interdependently.
Problems today are so complex that no one person can solve them all. So the future is determined by who is able to work together collaboratively, interdependently, and socially.
Thinking interdependently is a habit that we want to make sure our students have, because as we teach them to work in groups, we want them to be sure to learn how to hear each other, how to think with each other, how to influence one another. When we think about our 21st century skills, one of the critical skills is collaboration. And collaboration means we are learning how to think interdependently.
You're right, Peter. If I'm doing everything, I'm keeping my teammates from doing their best.
You've got it. When you think interdependently, you ask yourself, who else could help us?
Isn't your grandma a little too old to come to school with us?
She's not going to school with us, Maria. She's going back to college.
Oh, but didn't she already go to college a long time ago?
Yeah, but my grandma says that you're never too old to keep learning.
The real joy of learning is to remain open to continuous learning. And I think when we work with our young children, they are really aiming for the next level. They want to be grown up. They want to be doing all those things that the older kids are doing. But we also want them to realize that remaining open to continuous learning means that you're never done, but that there's also the joy of learning.
One of the things that we found was successful people wanted to continually learn more about their subject matter. And so one of the attributes of successful people is that they have a humility. They're willing to say, I'm not perfect. I don't know it all. I want to learn more. And we need that throughout our entire lifetimes. I don't care how old you get, there's always more to learn.
Being open to continuous learning means that you're willing to learn from any experience in life. Everything we do can teach us something new, as long as we're open to it.